Hey, Transformers96 here with another review. This time we have the Marvel Legends from the Spider-Man series, the Hobgoblin Build-A-Figure. So to be able to build this Build-A-Figure, you will need Daredevil, Spider-Man 2099, Spider-Girl, as well as Spider-Woman, Spider-Man, and Anti-Venom, all of which are Spider-Man themed characters. Daredevil is a little questionable. He's more of just a Marvel character in general and doesn't really have too many ties with Spider-Man though. So overall, a very much Spider-Man themed wave with a Spider-Man themed villain. They did go with a rather modern interpretation of the Hobgoblin. Any of you know the Hobgoblin, he looks very different from this in the original comics, and he uses a glider and doesn't have these wings or weapons like this one does have. This is, I believe he's like the Goblin Knight in the comics actually, and I don't know too much about him, but anybody who knows about this Hobgoblin seems to really enjoy him. So overall, I do imagine that he is a good character in the comics. Going over the actual figure here, the figure itself is really quite nice. The sculpting on this face is really good, as you can see. It's he's obviously very shaded inside the hood. But overall, it's very cool. I do like it a lot. He does have the orange hood, which is got a texture to it, which I do like a lot. Makes it look rather realistic. The muscular body is done quite well. It's obviously not a reused body. It's completely a new mold. The fingers are pretty interesting, and they look nice. They do have a bit of a cartoonish look, though. And then the boots and everything have the straps with the feet that have a little indentation for like the sharp toes, which is kind of interesting. He does have big wings that do have texture in them, which is cool, and a very small backpack that the wings do go into. Overall, my only complaint about this figure, really, I don't think has anything to do with this figure in general, and it's more of just the character complaint, is that he looks really cartoonish. And I said this when they first showed him at Comic-Con. I made a video just talking about the toys at Comic-Con, and I said that this looked like a very cartoony Hobgoblin, and to this day, I still think he looks really quite cartoony. I don't know what it is, just he's got a very much like a television show cartoon look to him, which I also think is the same type of look that the Spider-Man from this series has. The other figures from this series do look very comic bookish, but some of them really do have a cartoon type of look to them, and that just might be something that bothers me. And I don't know what it is. I think it might just be the very clean lines in it. It's hard to kind of explain, and the face too also has a cartoonish look. Just kind of interesting. And then this fire is obviously very stylized, and which gives it a bit of a cartoon look as well. But overall, taking that aside and, knowing the actual character, I think it does look quite nice. One thing that I think would have really helped it look more like a comic book is the shading. I mean, they've got a little bit of shading in the little pockets here. They've got some dark kind of brown or really dark orange kind of wash into them. And there might even be the tiniest bit at the bottom of the chest here, but for the most part, there really isn't any shading. Would have liked some in the dark blue at the shoulders, and the hood would have definitely done well with some shading. I would have liked that. Unfortunately, we didn't get that though. He does have a very bright orange with a very dark blue on his arms as well as legs, and then the boots there are more of a metallic dark blue, which I think does look quite nice. And then he has silver and black highlights throughout him, which I think looks quite good. And then his face sculpt is more of like a really pale yellow. Overall, really do like the paint a lot. Accessory-wise, he's really good, which is awesome. Typically with Build-A-Figures, they don't come with the best amount of accessories, but this one is the exception. He comes with this awesome sword, which just looks really cool. It's got, the hilt to it is really nice and very goblin-esque. It almost resembles a glider just looking at it from the top. And then he's got this awesome fire blade, which just looks great. It's a translucent yellow, but at the edges, you do get an orange paint job on it. Really nicely sculpted and just made, and overall, I think it looks great. He does come with an extra hilt, which is just meant to be stored on the back, like it's unignited. I thought that there would probably be a problem with this falling out. Luckily, the peg is so long that it doesn't have any sort of issue falling out or anything like that, so I'm very happy with how that fits into the backpack. And then he also comes with a little pumpkin bomb, which is cool. You can see a bit of a pumpkin face in there. It's very hard to see, though. But overall, it does look really nice, and you do get a nice fire effect on the top. He does have a hand that's, basically meant to be holding that. And if you just, kind of place it in his hand, it will stay and everything. If you try to have him in any sort of, somewhat dynamic pose and have the bomb in his hand, sometimes he does struggle to hold it. Unfortunately, there's no peg that allows you to peg it into his hand whatsoever. And his hand is in a shape where it doesn't, like, the thumb isn't going around the other side and holding it. It's really just like it's here, and then the pumpkin bomb, sits on top of it, instead of his thumb being more like this, so that he's more actually holding it. So because of that, really, when you have him in his hand, when you have the pumpkin bomb in his hand, it's really just that it's resting there, and he's not really doing anything to hold it. So would have liked them to engineer it a bit better with a peg maybe, or just engineer the hand a bit differently so that he can hold it. Articulation is quite good for the most part. He does have a ball jointed neck, but it is severely hindered from this hoodie. The hood and the head are not actually connected. They're not glued on or anything, but it is kind of stuck on there. So it can slightly look side to side. Oh, and his head just popped off, which is a shame. Yeah, the head is the one part that's a little hard to put on with this Build-A-Figure just because of the hood. I mean, there's no really good place to grasp it and really push it into the actual ball joint. He's got ball hinge shoulders with a swivel at the bicep, which is kind of at the lower bicep though, not like we usually see, which is kind of interesting, but works really well. Double hinge elbows, hinge swivel wrist. The hinge on the wrist is pretty decent, going back and forth. It does hinge quite a lot. Nowhere near the hinge capability of like the Spider-Man from this series though. He has an ab crunch that allows him to go back quite far and forward a fair amount. Then he has a swivel waist, ball jointed thighs that are a bit hindered by his get up here. But if you do kind of force them through, they will actually get a nice range of movement. And the get up doesn't actually like push his leg down. He will actually have his leg stay there. It won't slowly fall back down or anything. He has a a thigh swivel, double hinge knees, and then a hinge pivoting ankle. Overall articulation is quite good, hindered in a few areas, but nothing too extreme. And then unfortunately the wings don't have any sort of articulation. I don't know how the wings work in the show. I bet they more just glide and he just kind of jumps out and they don't move at all. But so like a flapping hinge wouldn't really help very much, just based on if you if in the comics they actually don't move very much, then this is fine. If in the comics they do have some movement though, or they flap slightly or something, I would have liked to see some type of hinge to reflect that in the toy though, but I'm not quite sure too much about this guy's comic appearance, so I can't attest to that he actually does have any articulation in the wings. Doing a little size comparison, he is relatively small. Comparing him to a skinny figure that's pretty normal and that's in this wave of Spider-Man, as you can see, he's about Spider-Man's size. He's a bit bulkier, and then he comes with a few more accessories, which makes him slightly bigger. When you compare him to another figure from this wave, the largest one, that's Anti-Venom, he is actually smaller in height as well as in bulk. Now, of course, the wings do add to his mass, but still the wings are quite thin. It's not like they add a ton of extra to him. And then when we do compare him to the Build-A-Figure in the next wave, which is Thanos, as you can see, he is definitely quite smaller. I mean, obviously, his accessories do help, and, I think that they're kind of banking on the fact that he has a few accessories to kind of compensate for his very short stature as well as relatively skinny physique. He's not, a bulky character like Thanos, and Thanos isn't even that tall of a Build-A-Figure or anything, so overall, I find this Hobgoblin to be quite small. Would have definitely preferred it to have more bulk, and or at least just come with something else. I mean, I know that he doesn't use a glider in this incarnation, but it would have been nice to just get something else with him, or just for them to do a different Build-A-Figure altogether. I think that this guy could easily pass as just another figure in the wave, because he's just not very big. The wings are the really only thing that adds any sort of extra mass to him than an average figure, I must say. But that being said, his sculpt is all completely new, and a lot of figures these days reuse a lot of their parts. So Build-A-Figures, of course, in this year, at least in 2015, don't reuse any parts, which is quite nice, and I think that that's what they're using to justify the fact that he is a Build-A-Figure, that he doesn't reuse any parts. So, I mean, that is quite nice, but when you're just going over it with mass, he definitely is quite lackluster from the Build-A-Figure before him, which was Odin, and the Build-A-Figure after him, which is Thanos. So he's, very small in between them, I must say. say. There you go, that's my review of the Marvel Legends Spider-Man series Hobgoblin Build-A-Figure. Thanks so much for watching.